And Mrs. Rocha, if you can come back to the microphone again with Dave Perry for our Custodial and Maintenance Services Award.
Well, we're so lucky at the primary school to have 2 employees that are being recognized for the district. And Mr. Dave, our head custodian, I have to say, when I started at the primary school, he was immediately different than other head custodians that I had worked with at my previous 2 schools, because he was actually very responsive. I'm used to people who, for some reason, they start hiding previous custodians when I would call them, and he was always ready to do whatever I needed him to do. It's not all about me, of course, it's about him. What I can say is just a little something that he told me that kind of sums him up. About a month ago, I was able to sit down privately, individually with all the classified staff members and just talk to them about how they were feeling. And what Mr. Dave, as we call him, said is, we need to treat our school like it's Disneyland. And I thought, what do you mean by that? And he continued to say, when we get to school, this needs to be the happiest place on earth for the children. And that is how he presents himself every single day. He is not just very detail oriented with taking his job very seriously and doing an amazing job for our campus, but it's the special thing about him is his relationships with the students and the staff. And I wrote in his letter of recommendation that, just to give you an example, is that we have a student who needs to take frequent breaks, and we had different things that we were trying to implement for him, but he always seemed to disappear in bathrooms and other places. So finally we realized we need to have a person assigned to him, and that was Mr. Dave. Of course, we asked him first, and he said, of course. So now his breaks are that he gets to work with Mr. Dave, and he loves being able to do that. I think you might have given him a ride on the golf cart once, or twice. And I was eating lunch in the staff room one day where he said, you know what, you've done a great job. You need to come and get yourself a snack. And it was a Friday, and we had treats in the staff room, and he said, pick what you want. And his eyes just, oh, which cookie do I get? And those are the things that make a difference in the life of a child. Those are the things that children remember. And so that is just one example of what he does. But the staff and all the students we're so lucky to be able to work with him. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be honored for our award. I don't believe any of us do our jobs for the awards we do. I know for me, I never have a bad day coming to work. I put on my shirt. I'm really proud that I get to represent St. Helena Unified School District, and just a small part. My principal said something that stayed with me, and will probably stay with me the rest of my life. She said, every person plays a role in a student's life, whether you're a crossing guard or a bus driver, or a custodian, or a paraeducator, or a cafeteria worker. It's amazing what a simple smile will do to change someone's life. I thank you for giving me a chance for an old guy like me to come back and work. I already finished my career. I never dreamed I would ever come back and work again. I interviewed for the job, and Andy Stubbs was there, and she said, anything you want to ask? And I asked about a comprehensive cleaning program and a few other things. And she said, anything you want to add other than that? And I said, yeah, do you know the difference between a pig and a chicken? And she dropped her pencil. She said, I got to hear this. And I said, well, if you were like me, you had the all-American breakfast every day, bacon and eggs. I said, think of it this way. All the chicken did was contribute, but the pig, he was committed. I promise you, if you hire me, I'll be a pig for the school district. And that's how I got my job. I don't know, but I still live that motto every day, that I want to be committed to make a difference in my school, that I believe that when we walk in our doors, our school says a lot, and we should be very proud of the people that walk in our doors in St. Helena. And I'm just blessed to be a part of a small team that I truly love and value as much as we care. People get hired for hundreds and hundreds of reasons, but they only stay at a job for 3. Number 1, they trust the people they work with. Number 2, they feel valued. Got to feel valued. And number 3, we make a difference. Thank you all for making a difference as our school board and trustees. And Dr. Wilson, thank you so much for your leadership and your guidance. And I'm just proud to get to be a part of your team. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
And Dave, if you'll go ahead and stay up here, and all of our other classified employees of the year, Dave, if you'll stay up here, board members, if you'll go inside the dais, we'll get a photograph with all of our classified employees. Clara and Charlene and Derek, Letty, come on up. Ben, will you be taking the photo for us? Thank you. And while everyone's finding their seats, a reminder that our Charlene and Dave, along with some other county employees, will be honored on May 18th at the Most Excellent School Staff Celebration in collaboration with the Teachers of the Year. And so that'll be at the Napa County Office of Education. More details will be following. Again, thank you to all 5 of you for who you are and what you do. You, I know, are representatives of all of our employees. Thank you for being here. We knew we had to twist your arm just a little bit, but it was nice to take a moment to celebrate you. President Pelosi?
Thank you. I was going to say, wouldn't it be great to just like end the meeting on that high note? That's all the great stuff. But congratulations and thank you to our amazing staff. We're going to just take a quick 5-minute break for those who might need to leave and get back to families and whatnot, and then we'll just reconvene in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Hi there. I think we'll get started back again, please. Thank you for sticking around with us tonight. We're going to move on to item 8A, which is the board member report, and I'm going to ask Trustee Simon to take it away.
Yeah, I think we have some pictures. Do I need the clicker, or I have the clicker? How do I use it again? Is it that one? It's this one. Okay, great. Okay, so I had the wonderful privilege to be back at the high school and tour with Principal Cinto and Dr. Wilson. And every time I've been on campus, we have just taken a look at some different classes and to help me get a feel of the campus in general. And so this time I asked if we could take a look at the history program. And also we went back in and took a look at the mechanics, and also I wanted to learn more about the ag science program. So that's what we did. And here we go. Okay, so we started in Mr. Blasingame's NVC, which is Napa Valley College. It's the dual enrollment course for juniors, 121. And when we were in class with him, he was teaching the students about Japanese and Japanese American experience during World War II, and he was discussing the California Alien Land Law that prohibited Asian immigrants from owning land in the state of California during the first half of the 19th century. And Mr. Blasingame's class you could hear a pin drop in his class. He's so engaging and knowledgeable, and I learned from Principal Cinto that he has spent some time in Japan, and that he peppers his lessons with personal anecdotes and stories shared by his wife, who is Japanese, who I know, and from his extensive research. I really wish I could be in his class. I was captivated and did not want to leave. So it was a wonderful experience. And Principal Cinto also shared with me that this is the second dual enrollment class. We have History 120 and History 121. That have secured immediate blessings of the Napa Valley College Social Science Department. So we are able to expand our offerings to have those courses that will translate to California State and UC as actual three credits to going to college. So that's awesome. All right, so, okay, and here we are with Miss Ashwanden, who is our Napa County Teacher of the Year finalist. And I got to spend some time in the Ag Sciences department, which is a beautiful wing. And she was lecturing to her students. And then all the students, after her lecture, we moved across to the science, to the lab, which is bright and airy and large and feels like she has a lot of opportunity for flexible grouping and different experimentation. And I love the way that the building is set up to teach science. And the students were preparing for a lab on molarity and dilutions, so way over my head. And they were using different concentrations of sugar in lemonade. And it was really cute because during the lesson, the students noticed it. They had to immediately adjust their assignment, given that the vessel was incapable of containing the amount of liquid that they thought they had. So being the teacher that she is, she just didn't make it a big deal and said, all right, we're going to utilize our math skills and we're going to use fractions of all elements in the experiment. And they were able to pivot and not have this big issue of, oh my God, chaos and teacher and having to start over. It just was this beautiful, quick pivot, and they went on with their lesson, and I was very impressed. The last stop, here we go. Here they are. Okay, the last stop, oh my goodness. Is the rib feed sold out? It was last night. It's sold out. So I was so impressed. This was my first experience seeing what Randy Mendez does with his advanced ag mechanics students. And they weren't in there at the time, but we went in and took a look at their projects. And I'm blown away, absolutely blown away that these are all projects that students did with their 3 years of knowledge of welding and woodwork and design using CAD, which is the I have it here, the computer-aided design engineering that they have to learn, not just to go in there and start working there with their hands. They have to be familiar with CAD and do the computer design, and then they work into making these beautiful, beautiful things. So it was really, really impressive. And that's it. Yeah. Any questions?
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay, trustees, comments, questions for Trustee Simon?
Thank you.
Yeah, all those items were at the Rib Free were pretty impressive last night, so it was great. I think
Just
the
beautiful.
last two that you showed might have been the top lots of the night, the smoker and the bar.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was great. It was a great turnout.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. Item 8B is the Superintendent Subcommittee reports, and we're going to start with the LCAP Steering Committee, which met on March 15th. So Trustees Howe and Kerr?
Good evening. I'll report on this tonight, and then Trustee Haug, if you have anything, please add. So it was on, as Trustee Pelosi said, it was on March 15th, and there's just three things that I'm going to talk about tonight that we did. The first one is and you'll see, and the board members, you'll see this on the agenda. It's item 11A. It's the student engagement piece, and this is always a really interesting piece. So I hope that you have the opportunity to read it in the entirety and review it and things. There was a lot. What I wanted to point out on this one here is it was great as far as the total number of students. So it was 88 students that participated in this, and then 64 high school students and 24 middle school. And it was nice because this year at the LCAP, the idea was that we wanted to make it comfortable for our students to participate. And part of that was where it wasn't about us in the room listening to them. We wanted to make it a little bit more where they feel comfortable in talking. So it was Mr. Cinto and Ms. Cox who facilitated it at the schools. So it was great to see that much participation of the students, and it was interesting information in this report. And then also, secondly, is the Mr. Cinto, so each of the meetings, there is a school site action plan from each one of the principals, and it was Mr. Cinto's turn to present. And so his was, what he reported on was the continuance of the 5 goals that he has at the high school. Goal number 1 was to continue to infuse critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, and citizenship into all learning environments. And then there's several bullet points where he says what they're doing at the school in order to attain this goal. The second goal was to develop and implement the new adult transition program, 18 to 22. Those are our students with the disabilities, and then they've graduated from high school and they're on to their next step in life. And so this has been, I know, to Mr. Cinto and to the staff at the high school, it's been very near and dear to their hearts. So I think that everyone is really, really pleased with the outcome of this so far this year. The third one is to continue to solicit student voice. And this is something in my experience here as a trustee. We've always solicited the student voice, but I think that we get better and better at it each year. So, and I'm always happy I love hearing what the students have to say. I know that all of us do, because that's why we're here, is for our students. Part of that, so in addition to this, I did want to say that there were Trustee Pelosi, myself, and the 4 of us. We were at the Student Congress, which was another venue where our students are able to discuss topics that are important to them. And one of the topics that you saw this evening was the water bottle station and the trash cans, just because they're concerned about our earth, and I think that's perfect. I mean, that's what they should be concerned about right now. I'm serious. I mean, it's really, and then goal 3 is continue building out our MTS system of supports at the secondary levels, including universal design for learning of professional development. So that's just, just continuing to see how we can keep supporting our students through the years. And as we know, these last couple of years have been very, very difficult for our students and our families and our employees. And this is the time where we've got to continue to listen and evaluate ways that we can help our students and our families as well. And then goal number 5 is prepare to implement the IC3 certification course in 9th grade Humanities Essentials class for the 22-23 year. And the IC3 certification is an internet computing course certification, and that is it's basically the universal benchmark for digital literacy. So that is something that they are putting together this year in order for it to be to implement it in the 22-23 year. I want to commend Mr. Cinto for his report in the sense that it's always very thorough, very thoughtful, and there's always questions he's able to answer as he goes along, and it's in general that the LCAP steering committee is very informative as far as kind of what we're doing in our schools, and it's and as you know, it's what guides us in the work that we do here. Is there anything that you wanted to include? Okay, great. Sorry that it was so long. I apologize.
You had good information to share. Thank you. Okay, Monrovia. That would be Trustees Olguin and Trustee Howe.
So we met this morning. The other meeting I was not in attendance, but we'll go over our most recent meeting. I think is most appropriate. So first of all, the Monrovia group, for those of you who did not know, is the group where the chamber, the city, Preschool for All, a representative from the CIA, representative from Blue Zones, representative from the Family Center. Often it's the county supervisor, and sometimes we've had health people from the Department of Health meeting us as well. It's kind of a meeting where we have a cross-pollination of information of what other organizations are doing. So I'm just going to share out really quickly. The Chamber spoke first. Annual Earth Day is going to be at the Upper Valley campus this Saturday from 9 to 12. There will be recycling, paper shredding, and e-waste collection. The Summer Concert Series is going to be every Thursday in July in Lyman Park, and it's working collaboratively with Blue Zones. There is a planned return to fireworks in Crane Park, this time hopefully making sure that there is no damage to our turf. And then the Chamber is also working on public art throughout the city to include murals and public art installations. And the Chamber is also looking at a parking survey throughout the city with businesses. They're going to be doing a parking survey, and I guess it's the first one that's been done in many years. For the city, the mayor spoke on that they're going to be pushing out water conservation and fire preparedness these coming months, even though that the reservoir is looking better than it did in the past. We still have to look at water conservation. The Vine Trail pieces are coming together. That's going to be coming up later in the in our agenda as well. There was a mariachi event that was very successful, held through the Napa Valley College at our Performing Arts Center here. They are still in the process of their city manager's search, and Jim McCann is the interim right now, and everything is going smoothly and well. Measure H is a water infrastructure bond that will be on the ballot, and that's something that everyone should be aware of and study up on the necessity of that measure. There is going to be a zoning update as well for the city. The CIA has more events on their books. The next week, they're going to start their summer semester with 150 new students on their campus. Summer semester is usually their least attended semester, as opposed to the other two semesters, which are have many more students, but they still are happy with the amount of students that are going to be participating. The cafe and restaurant is open, and they are starting to book weddings and other events. Blue Zones, they are going to be doing the walking school bus from Stonebridge to RLS next week. They are working with Calistoga and Yountville to distribute resources among all three towns. They are recipients of a CDFA grant. They are doing some tobacco screening programs on all our campuses. They are also doing a food access calendar for those in our community with food needs, to get an idea of how those needs need to be met throughout the year. They are expanding into Lake County, and I can't read my last note there, but anyway. And then I will turn over to Julio for an update on Preschool for All.
I'll keep mine short. For Preschool for All, just we're open for enrollment right now for the upcoming year. Looking for families in St. Helena, Calistoga, or Angwin with children ages 3 to 4 years old, and it's deadline on May 6th for anyone that needs support with that. And then just wanted to highlight, one of the highlights was just a collaboration that we're working on with the primary school. Our preschool teachers and are working with our primary school teachers to work on the transition piece. So just they're going to be doing some informal assessments and providing some information prior to the incoming students, just to work on the that it's help benefit the students in the transition piece. So we're excited about that. I think that's it for my.
Okay, thank you. We have equity and inclusion that met on March 22nd. That will be trustees Olguin and Simon.
Start whatever. Okay. We began the meeting with a presentation by Jill Barnes, and it was opportunity for deeper equity work. And what we quickly learned that we did not have time to do that deeper equity work, so it was a really nice introduction to how that work is done, and the steps that they take for how they think about going deeper in that work. And they said that they use the California multi-tiered systems of support also when they're doing their equity work, and they use that structure for systemic change in California. And so we referred to this as we were discussing equity, and that it's grounded in cognitive research and neuroscience. So it's a good place to start. And we as a committee, we took a look at the three options to deepen equity work, and we as a committee voted on what we felt was most important for our school district, where we wanted to focus. And we decided that number one would be culturally responsive teaching, CRT, and this is to help students become leaders of their own learning. And then we decided that number two for our district was more focus in SEL, so that serves as a mechanism for equity. And then number three, so that was the one that we didn't have as many votes for, but still important, but it was universal design for learning. So that's effective recognition and strategic networks. So that CR2, that culturally responsive teaching, really was number one for the committee. And it was shared with us, while educators must get to know their students and learn about what they know about their own learning, what's more important is that we teach, the goal is self-advocacy, so that we're teaching our students to help a student get to know themselves better, so they can be their own advocates, because they get new teachers every year. And instead of having to start that process of feeling comfortable of asking questions, getting help when they need it, really the work with the teacher is to help the students feel confident in helping themselves. So that was a big takeaway. Julio, is there anything you want to? There were other parts of the meeting if you want to.
Yeah,
talk.
I mean, just to highlight the culturally responsive teaching. I mean, the way it was phrased is just becoming leaders of their own learning, which I think that
Yeah.
kind of phrase stuck with me. And she provided some of that framework, which I think is interesting, how it's broken down into the different sections. I would just also say that just overall, just listening to her presentation, it's a lot of the teachers and staff are already doing a lot of the work here, so it's not like we're just starting from scratch. So it's good to know that a lot of the teachers are implementing a lot of these strategies already within within the ones she presented.
And I just wanted to piggyback off of when Jeannie presented was when you were saying that it was nice that the students had a voice in the LCAP to share. I would love seeing that every year, especially coming out of COVID, because the mental health piece about what they shared about themselves is really, really struck a chord with me. And I want us to keep monitoring that and seeing growth or any red flags. But that work, the self-advocacy and then that work really, I felt like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then business operations, Trustee Simon and myself were both out of town when that meeting occurred. So, Ms. Stubbs, would you be so kind as to give us an overview?
Absolutely. The committee heard highlights from the 2021-22 second interim report and reviewed the 2022-23 budget assumptions. They also reviewed Measure B and C bond program expenditures and the audit reports in lieu of the Citizens Oversight Committee, because we have no active members on that committee right now as the bond program is winding down. And our auditors have said that that would be an acceptable alternative. The committee also reviewed information about potential repairs to the high school roof pending board approval and provided support for a plan to add a few water bottle filling stations across the district. And then finally, they received an update on our work around possibly putting out a request for quotations for an energy consultant who can potentially help us to identify some potential energy efficiency projects.
Thank you so much. Okay, and the last committee was the Curriculum, Technology, and Innovation that met on April 19th. That's Trustees Kerr and Simon.
And I'll go ahead and start with this. So this will be very, very quickly because it was a couple of review that we've already heard. First off, it was Mr. Butts presenting the math alignment, the detracking mathematics, and similar presentation as we had. I believe it was last month. So that was similar. Lots of questions about that, lots of interest and things about that, and interesting to kind of see, how that's all going to unfold for sure. Then we also had a presentation by Mary Allen on the universal transition kindergarten, and that's interesting as well. It's something that as board members we definitely should be keep abreast on because there's a lot going on with that. And basically universal transition kindergarten is the state of California kind of ahead of the curve in like usual kind of, they're very much ahead of the curve in many things, and it's basically to expand access for all 4-year-olds. And so it's basically just kind of what the framework looks like, and not necessarily how we get there, because that's something that we do kind of internally as a district, but just this is what we need to do in the next 3 or 4 years. How are we going to get there? So that was kind of what the presentation looked like, and then Mr. Heller updated is on the technology department, just the job descriptions and reorganization, and new infrastructure and equipment. And the one thing to remember, the family should know about this. It's the family engagement survey that's out right now. That's something you can do online. It'll probably take maybe 5 or 6 minutes. I don't think it'd take very much of the time. And it's for the families and community. And it closes on April 22nd. So tomorrow's the day. So families, please take that survey. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to items 8C and D, which are, remind you guys that they are written reports this month. Item 8C,
I do believe that CSEA is here to report.
Oh, my apologies. I apologize. Item 8C is going to be a written report. Item 8D is the California School Employees Association report to the board. So please. welcome to the microphone, Ms. Montelli.
Good evening. First, thank you so much for recognizing the employees this evening. They genuinely deserve it, as well as Mrs. Ashwanden. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm here on behalf of CSEA. They would like to thank everyone for including us in the California Labor Management Initiative. That it felt really good to be included in that, and to feel that we actually are truly valued. Even though you express it all the time, it's one more thing that makes us feel very valuable. Also, we'd like to thank you for your continued guidance with COVID. We have stayed open and we have had no problems, and it's felt really good to be with the kids and to see their smiles, and still you expect us to maintain our cleaning, that we've been doing, even though we're entering an endemic. And you still expect us to maintain that high level of cleanliness and distance, and so thank you very much. And lastly, we'd like to thank you for including us in committees, the Safety Committee, the Business Operations Committee, and so that we can attend and bring back to our members exactly what's going on before they hear it from someone, a parent or anything else. It's just a way for us to even feel more inclusive. So thank you again on behalf of CSD St. Helena, Chapter 287, President Christina Vina, and Vice President Dave Perry, Secretary Fernando Galvan. So thank you very much, and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Montelli.
Thank you.
It's always nice to have
great.
an in-person update, so thank you so much. Okay, we're going to go on to items 8E, which is the superintendent's report. Dr. Wilson, please.
Yes, thank you. I thought that I would continue in that celebratory mood for the evening and acknowledge a couple of our administrators tonight. So, Mr. Cinto, if you could come to the podium while I speak, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. The Association of California School Administrators is known as ACSA, is a statewide organization that builds, supports, and provides professional development for administrators. And we are a part of what's called Region 4, so the state is cut up into different regions. And much like the county with the Classified Employees of the Year and the Teacher of the Year, ACSA promotes Administrator of the Year awards. And I'm super pleased to share with you that Mr. Cinto was named for the Region 4 the Secondary Principal of the Year. And this is an annual nomination. And so when I thought of this year specifically, I thought about the way that so gracefully and seamlessly Mr. Cinto opened a school again during times of COVID with masks and safety, all kinds of safety protocols. And while he was doing all of the safety protocols, he also was working diligently to make sure that the students had access to not only their core and elective programs, but also to athletics and activities outside of the school day. When he came to me and said, we want to have homecoming, I said, okay, write out the protocols. And he did that without hesitation. Can we have a homecoming dance? Sure. Give me some protocols. I need to have county medical health approve them. So every time there was a reason to do something to celebrate children and engage them in the school setting, because we know students come to school for other reasons other than academics, and to get them hooked back into our school year and our system, Mr. Cinto was willing to go that extra mile. So our students did have homecoming. They did have a parade. They did have a prom, a dance. Prom is coming up. Thank you, Ben, for all of your work and for making sure that our students received everything they needed every day, and will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a word?
I just want to steal Dave's speech. I mean, that was so good. No, I consider myself, again, I've been in St. Helena High School for 15 years now. I really consider myself to be in the most fortunate place, given the staff that I work with, the students that we serve, the parent community that has been just so generous and kind. in our district who has afforded me personally a lot of freedom and liberty to be involved in many different things. One of the things I love about working at a small school and small district is I get to be involved in so many different things. So I'm very grateful for that, and I know in being selected, that's what they looked at, is the diversity of things that I've done both at the school and within the county and even at the state level. So again, thank you for the recognition. I greatly appreciate it.
I have an orchid for you also. And Mr. Heller, if you could also go to the podium at this time. Yes. So I think you all know that Mr. Heller, our Chief Academic Human Resources Officer, is also known as a coach. I think you know that. He's very athletic and really enjoys sports. And over the course of his entire career, he's been very involved with the California Interscholastic Federation, otherwise known as CIF. And even during his time here, he has dedicated time to CIF. And he was honored recently with the CIF Distinguished Service Award, and specifically the North Coast Section, thank you, Distinguished Service Award. So let's give him a round of applause. Now, Mr. Heller has been a part of NCS for nearly 2 decades. He has been on the Board of Managers since 2004, and he's worked for 9 years on the Executive Committee, including 2 years as the Vice President, so taking leadership roles even there. He also served on the CIF Executive Committee and the Federation Council between 2011 and 2015. So this really sounds a little bit more like a Lifetime Service Award, although he's still strong and with us. When he's spoken about within CIF, he is known for 3 key tenets, which I did not know about him, and I think that they're awfully important for all of you to know. 1, relationships matter. 2, challenge yourself to get better. And 3, help the next one in line. Let's celebrate Mr. Heller.
Well, now I have to follow Ben and Dave. I don't know exactly what else to add. Those were great. I just appreciate the acknowledgement, and I'm very humbled by it. And I don't really have a lot to say. It's a privilege to work here and to continue to have an opportunity to help serve North Coast Section Athletics in a very small capacity, but continue my work with athletics and continue to have a role in that. Something that I appreciate having additional time to be able to do and support our student athletes of our community. So thank you. Thank you.
President Pelosi, thank you for indulging me. That concludes my report.
That was very important to do. Are we having another photo op for that? Oh, yes. Thank you. Okay.
I got it.
Anybody's stealing my plan.
Thanks. Okay. Okay, congratulations again to both of you. Excuse me. Okay, items 8F, G, H, and I, respectively, are the principals' reports on their respective sites. They are written reports As always, they're super informative, and whether you work here or you're a parent in the community, we always advise you to take a moment to read them because they contain great information. They also highlight students and volunteers of the month, and that's always something that's worth noting. So thank you for submitting those to the board for us.
I do have a question. Just on, for the RLS report, Principal Cox, can you just expand a little bit on the classroom circles?
Sure, I'd be happy to. One of the issues we've been dealing with at RLS is that we've had students making inappropriate racist comments to each other. There have been a lot of words that they hear online or, among their friend groups. And because we have a community which is diverse in terms of our Hispanic and white population, but we don't have a lot of other diversity. So for many of those students, there's no real context behind what they're saying. And, middle school kids do not always have the greatest abstract thinking skills. And so they've been using words that really have huge power and meaning, and just in terms of their desire to appear cool in front of their friends or to repeat things that they're hearing in songs or that they're seeing online. So I don't think there's been a lot of understanding of the pain that can be caused by what they're saying. A lot of it for the most part, wise enough not to say it in front of adults. There have been a few exceptions, but mostly, it's a lot of it's online and then among friends when it comes into school. So we really wanted to start doing some things to build an understanding among students of the power of their words and that what they say has meaning and causes harm and isn't just a word that has letters in it, and they just don't really necessarily understand that. So one of the things we've had a number of things that we are doing to work with students and to form a community of students who are more capable of standing up and more capable of walking away when they hear people being inappropriate. A lot of kids don't have the strategies to know what to do. So they're torn, they hear something, they know internally this is wrong and hurtful. On the other hand, I really want to be cool and I really like those kids and I don't want somebody to be mad at me, and so I'm not going to say anything, and then it causes this whole internal war about your conscience versus what you think you should do to maintain your friend group. So it's been really difficult to help kids who are incredibly concerned about peers, like far more than parents at this age. It's developmental. They need to separate themselves from what adults are saying and really care mostly about what their peers are saying. So trying to provide them with some strategies and some ways to be a community of people who can all just say no to this kind of behavior together, because our kids are wonderful. The vast majority of our students are amazing, wonderful, caring, thoughtful human beings with parents who are appalled, as they should be, that this kind of thing is going on at all, but they don't know what to do. And so classroom circles are one of the things that we've been doing to try and build some strategies and support for students who are trying to figure this out, as we all are. And so we've had 2 so far. The first one was just an opportunity in small classes. We didn't want to do it in a big group. That's not a great place for middle school kids to do anything that's important. So they did it in small groups. We first met with Miss O'Leary and Mr. Samuels, and I did practice classroom circles with each grade level of teachers so that they had experienced it themselves before they were asked to lead them. And then teachers who felt uncomfortable, one of us sat in with them so that we didn't want anyone to feel like they didn't have the confidence to be able to do this. And the initial questions were just really to elicit students' feelings about what's happening and their level of concern. And it was all over the place. It was quite interesting. There was many kids that were like, I hear nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Why are we doing this? to groups who are like, yes, this is a major issue. And I would say the majority of kids were somewhere in the middle. Like, yeah, we hear it sometimes. I'm not really aware of it. It was also interesting in doing it with teachers because the teachers were similar. Most teachers, it's not happening in classrooms where teachers are hearing it. So a lot of teachers were very shocked and had no idea, because our teachers have great classroom management. And when kids are in class, they're working. And so it's not really happening in class. So some teachers were more aware. Other teachers were really utterly, like, on a scale of 1 to 5, like 0. I've never heard anything ever. So it was partly educating staff as well. So the questions on the first classroom circle, again, were just eliciting students' feelings about this. How are you feeling? How big of a problem is it? And there was a variety of responses to it. Some kids were very chatty, and other kids, it was more challenging. So we used some of our strategies about having kids speak in partners in groups that were struggling more, so that they had an opportunity to talk to each other before they talked to the group. And it's very much if students choose to share. Nobody's asked to share if they don't want to. And then the second time, we wanted to expand on what we were doing, and also take it a little bit further and talk about what you can do as to not just be a bystander, but to help with the situation. And so we wanted to give kids a little bit more context. So, for example, in 6th grade, they watched a TED Talk, and I think some of the 8th grade classes did that as well, with a couple of 18-year-old girls who took a year off college to go around and interview people about their own experiences personally, about how it feels and what their experience of racism has been in their lives. And then each history teacher agreed to do a gallery walk in their classes. So the gallery walk included some historical photographs and also some quotes about being a bystander. For example, I'm going to get the words wrong on this one, so I apologize. One by Martin Luther King Jr. that is something like, in the end, what hurts the most is not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. I'm sorry if I messed that up. It's a beautiful quote, and I probably didn't do it perfectly. But and then did that ahead of time before we had the second classroom circle, so that kids would have an opportunity to discuss earlier, and then really brought that back and asked questions along the lines of, have you ever not done something that your gut was telling you was right? What, and what could you have done differently? And just a lot of conversation about how things are going, giving kids just an opportunity to have a safe place to share, not to make anybody share who chooses not to, but to open that door. And again, it's been dependent on each group of students, but all students have, it's been great in every class. All students have participated actively. Some people very much. We have an ongoing document that all the teachers have in a shared document where they've all written notes about the things they're hearing and what their responses of students were. And that piece of it is really just because teachers need to understand what the students are feeling, because it's not a topic that always comes up in history. It might, in English it might, in a math class probably not. So it's a way to get that information about how this is impacting students out to teachers as well. And then moving forward, we're working with a group called Washington Consulting Group, and they are a national organization that was recommended to us by Jennifer Marinez, who I didn't know this, maybe some of you do, but prior to her tenure at Rls, she was worked in the diversity department at UC Davis and had worked with this group and has, well, in her words, she said, I would go see them on a Saturday, which is pretty much the highest compliment there is. We're working on dates right now. It looks as though we have settled on the teacher day at the end of the year, because the consulting group and I agreed strongly that the starting place is for staff, and that you can't throw something big at students without giving staff the capacity first. So we're starting by building staff capacity so that they can support kids more effectively in class, and he was adamant that that was the way to go. And again, I agree, because we have teachers who are like, I don't know, I don't feel like I have the ability to do this. I don't know what to do. And then at the beginning of the year, he'll come back and meet with each grade level. So it's smaller groups for like about an hour and a half per grade level, doing in a workshop format, and then with our Safe School ambassadors at the end of the day after that, and then parents. So it's beginning with staff and then moving outward, just opening the door to conversation about what's happening, the impact it has, the hurt that is caused, and how to move beyond this, and how to make RLS a place that feels safe for all of our students, and that empowers students to develop the skills to do the right thing, even when it's hard, and for all of us to do that. So, did I answer your question thoroughly?
I think that was great. I'm glad that you asked that. I just quick follow up. How often do they plan, or do the circles plan to meet?
We've been doing them about monthly.
Monthly, okay. And I'm assuming it's voluntary for students to show up, right? It's just like
No, they are there because it's in their class.
Got it.
So
Okay, so it's in
everybody
every
is
classroom.
there, but they do
Okay.
not have to speak. We were very clear that no student, no teacher is to insist that a student speak. And if a student wants to speak, part of the protocol of a talking circle is they choose an object of some sort, and in order to speak, you have to be holding the object, and then that way it's one person at a time and everybody else listening.
Okay.
So it's part of it's kind of restorative circles are similar to that, just a way of being respectful of the person who has the floor and letting them have a voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody
Any
else
other
have
questions?
a follow-up question?
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate that you're taking the approach of the student circles instead of like a one and done assembly, which doesn't do much work. So I appreciate those intimate groups that you're doing. And while I do believe in the power of voice and teaching our middle schoolers that they need to stand up for their peers when racial slurs are being thrown at them, does the RLS also have an anonymous way for students to share anything that they've heard?
Well, they're always able to contact any of us via email. They could do that anonymously or unknown. We've also reinstituted the Stop It app that the high school has also. To be perfectly honest, it has not been particularly effective in the past, which is why we kind of let it go. And during COVID, it was really not necessary. But under the circumstances, it's certainly better to have it available and not used than to not have that available. And actually, Mr. Samuels was in all classes today. I think he made it to all classes today. That was his intent, talking with them about that app. And we're also doing a few other school-wide things, just, again, to build capacity. And so we'll be doing a school-wide read in all students. We'll be doing that during family groups on a book called What Lane? And it's about a mixed-race middle school boy who is getting old enough to look like a young man and is suddenly experiencing situations that he's never experienced before, and how his white friend doesn't see it at first, and then does. So it's important to find books that middle school kids at their level, the things that we as adults would want to read are not necessarily things that a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old is going to be able to accept. So, and this is really just we're doing audio versions. And so in family groups, each teacher is just playing it. And then there's room to talk if students choose to at the end. But we really just want them to hear. Just to hear that personal experience of what it feels like for somebody of a group that they're maybe not familiar with. And Ms. Kelparis is also we're doing a school-wide art project with Ms. Kelparis that we started already and will continue. It's beginning steps of shifting a culture and making people more aware. I'm really looking forward to the Washington Consulting Group. I was very pleased with the meetings that we've had so far, and I think they'll do an amazing job. He has experience in K-12. Most diversity people are not aimed at children, which seems odd, but it turns out they're not. They're mostly aimed at corporations and colleges. So it's very different. Obviously, to do a workshop with college students or a corporation than it is to do workshops with middle school kids. So it was important to find. It was a bit of a search to find the right group. So I feel good about that. Other questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
And I just thought of this. So were you able to, I think I know you're the answer to this. Were you able to begin the school year with like the Safe School Ambassadors program and like the Where We Belong, the web program?
We did do web. It was necessarily modified to some extent. We were not able to do the Safe School Ambassadors training. It didn't happen actually until February, I think.
Okay.
We've been trying to, staff members who were doing it ended up
Right.
being a part of the whole COVID world. So it
exactly.
kept
And
getting
so there was a
delayed
delay.
because of people who were
Exactly.
trying to do it. But
Right.
yeah, so yes, we do have that started. Next year will be different. Typically what we do is Safe School Ambassadors is just for 7th and 8th graders at the beginning of the year because we don't know the incoming 6th graders. However, since our plan is to have our workshops done with all Safe School Ambassadors, we're going to include 6th graders from the beginning and just get together with the elementary school and get names and train them all and just hope we got the right people, because really the goal is to have leaders in different groups of schools from
Right.
school. Yeah.
Perfect. Right. Thank you.
Thank
very
you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming up.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Principal Cox. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda, which is items 9A through K. Oh, sorry. Actually, on the communications portions, we do not take public comments. It's part of the communications. Trustees can ask clarifying questions on an item, but unfortunately, on the communications section of the agenda, there is not an opportunity for public comment at that point. Thank you. Consent agenda, items 9A through K. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion and action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, any written or Zoom-related public comment? Thank you. Excuse me. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No.
No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, I will request a roll call vote. Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Howe? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Trustee Kerr.
I'm going forward.
Trustee Kerr.
Oh, aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. I'm just like, I'm a rule follower on the, thank you so much. Okay. So we're going to move on to items 10A. Now, information and approval of the letters of support for the Napa Valley Vine Trail. We've got those attachments on there. Trustees, as we have been dealing with the Vine Trail as an issue for several years, or at least 2 to 3 years now, the safety of our students to and from school and when in the community is obviously a top priority for all of us. And obviously continues to do so. As a result, you may recall that in 2018, we passed a resolution in support of an easement in front of the Co-op Nursery School and Vintage Hall to allow the Vine Trail to create its continuous path from the city of Napa through Yountville, St. Helena, and ending in Calistoga. Over the past couple of years, we have received periodic updates and recently learned that the city of St. Helena approved the trail to pass through St. Helena, and at one portion, the trail will border the elementary school. Attached are letters to support the Vine Trail as they seek funding to complete the necessary work for the trail. Now that the path has been determined by the city, I would recommend we continue to show our support and approve the letters for submission. Has everybody had a chance to review those letters? Okay, great. Is there anyone participating who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, any Zoom public comment or written?
President Pelosi, there was one written item
Okay.
that was distributed to staff members
Correct. We did receive that
from
before a meeting.
Annette Smith.
Yes.
Are there any members participating via Zoom who wish to comment on this item? There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions, comments about this item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the letters of support for the Napa Valley Vine Trail as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Wilson, will you please call a roll call vote?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. And Macy, I defer to you for your preferential vote.
Aye.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 10B, request for adoption of Resolution 21-23, Staff Appreciation Week. Please,
It's
Dr.
been
Wilson.
Yes, it's been a bit of a celebratory evening, hasn't it? As we are coming towards the close of the year, May does mark that time when we celebrate employees. And there is a classified week officially in the state of California, and there is a Day of the Teacher. As a school district, we like to celebrate all of our employees together collectively because each one of them, as Mr. Dave said earlier, is as important as the other. So I would request that one of our board members read the resolution 2133, and I do recommend that you approve Staff Appreciation Week for the week of May 2nd through May 6th of 2022.
Yes, Trustee Kerr has offered to read the resolution.
Yes, I would be happy to. Thank you. This is Resolution 21-33, Staff Appreciation Week 2022. Whereas providing quality education to our young people continues to be our greatest challenge in education, as well as our most vital responsibility. And whereas we rely on our teaching and support staff to ensure quality instruction in a wide variety of subjects in and out of the classroom, and whereas in addition to teaching academics, teachers and classified staff members provide guidance, support, and encouragement to the children of St. Helena. And whereas our staff members go far beyond their contractual obligations to support and touch the lives of children. And whereas it's appropriate that we recognize and express appreciation to the employees of the St. Helena Unified School District and acknowledge with gratitude the care and concern they have for our students. And therefore, it be resolved that the Board of Education of St. Helena Unified School District acknowledges May 2nd, 2022 through May 6th, 2022 as Staff Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the board extends during this week and throughout the year its sincere appreciation to the instructional and support staff of the St. Helena Unified School District for their extraordinary dedication and professional commitment to the students of the St. Helena to the St. Helena community.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Were there any written comments or Zoom comments by members of the public?
There's no public comment.
Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay.
No.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 21-33 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 10C is the adoption and resolution of item number 21-34, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month 2022. Pardon me one second here while I get on here. I'm going to ask Dr. Wilson to...
If I may say a word or two, thank
Please.
you. Yes, this month is celebrated in May to commemorate the achievements and contributions of people of Asian and Pacific Islander descent in the United States. Our district is committed to the success of every student, every family, and all of our staff in our schools. And learning and working in environments are enriched and improved by the contributions, perspectives, and the very presence of diverse participants. I do recommend that you approve this Resolution 2134 after one of our board members has read it. And in the following board meeting in May, much as I have been doing all year, I will report to you either by our principal's reports or me verbally what has happened at our schools to honor this
Great.
resolution.
Thank you. Trustee Howe will go ahead and read the resolution for us.
So, Resolution 21-34, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, May 2022. Whereas in 1977, Congress introduced a House resolution to proclaim the first 10 days of May as Asian Pacific Heritage Week, a celebration of Asians and Pacific Islanders in the United States. And whereas in October 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed a joint resolution designating this as an annual celebration, which we now know as Asian Pacific Heritage Week. And whereas in 1990, May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States, which was May 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869, in which the majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. And whereas in 1990, Congress voted to expand the Asian Pacific Heritage Week from a week to a month-long celebration, and in May 1992, the month of May was permanently designated as Asian Pacific Heritage Month. And whereas studies have found that the academic needs of Asian American and Pacific Islander students are frequently overlooked, and whereas the understanding of Asian and Pacific Islander history is an important part of celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have endured and overcome hardship and heartache. In the earliest years, tens of thousands of gold rush pioneers, coal miners, transcontinental railroad builders, as well as farm and orchard laborers were subject to unjust working conditions, prejudice, and discrimination, yet they excelled. And whereas, even in the darkest of the Exclusion Act and the Japanese internment, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have persevered, providing their families and creating opportunities for their children. And whereas we acknowledge these Americans for their contributions to government, industry, and commerce, agriculture, science, literature, and the arts. And whereas California is one of the states with the largest Asian American and Pacific Islanders population. And whereas we acknowledge the historical and cultural contributions of Asian Pacific Americans in this development of the state of California. And whereas the diversity of these groups include Asian Indian, Bengali, Burmese, Cambodian, Chinese, Filipino, Guamanian, Hawaiian, Hmong, Indonesian, Japanese, Korean, Lao, Malayan, Okinawan, Pakistani, Samoan, Thai, Vietnamese, and others. And now, therefore, be it resolved as the governing board of the St. Helena Unified School District that May 2022 is designated as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, with appropriate instructional activities to recognize the countless contributions that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have made in helping our nation.
Thank you, Maria. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, any written public comments or Zoom comments?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
Okay. I do have a comment. I just think that it's very important that St. Helena recognizes also the history of our own town, and in that almost a quarter of the population of St. Helena was Chinese at the end of the 1800s. They dug the caves in Behringer and numerous other wineries. They built the railroad that comes through our town. They worked in the quarries, and they were farm laborers. Those families were all driven out of our town by the late 1920s. They were all driven out of their homes, their dwellings and stores were burned by citizens of our town. And I think that it is very important that we focus on the history of racism that occurred in our town and still occurs in our town. And we have to look at the history of St. Helena when we think about this resolution. And it is a shameful history.
Thank you, Maria. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 21-34 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Yes, aye.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 10D is information and approval of the revision of board policies. April recommendations. Dr. Wilson, please.
Yes, the Board Policy Committee did meet prior to this meeting, and Trustee Olguin is on that policy committee. Trustee Olguin, would you like to share a few words about the overview prior to me going into more content from the perspective of a board member?
So the committee is basically formed by a lot of administrative staff, so Superintendent Wilson, Andy, Chris, Principal Cinto, and Mary. And really what the task of the committee is for the policy alignment with federal and state requirements. And so this group of staff basically take the board policies, and they do a lot of time reviewing and reading them. And so when they bring them to the committee, they're kind of the shortened version or highlighted version. And so pretty much as a trustee, I mean, we sit there and listen. I mean, they're the experts on these, so they have recommendations. We have the opportunity to ask questions. And so there was a handful of policies that were on there. And I think there was a couple of them that kind of stood out just with the timing of things that are happening. The equity one and I think it's the hate motivated behavior. So those were kind of the two that I thought were timely that we could potentially discuss. But just overall, it's just very helpful when the staff presents them, just so that we can understand them. A lot of them are very long and tedious, so they do a lot of the work when they come to the committee, and a lot of them are routine in nature, and some of them do get updated or changes in language, and there's several new ones. I think the equity is a new one, so it just provides good background in terms of how basically the school system works and the policies that are in place, and so that's very helpful as a trustee.
Thank you, Trustee Olguin. Ms. Madrigal, could you put up the Board Policy Committee meeting notes chart? Board members, just as a reminder, we do bring a number of policies to you, and they have been vetted by the committee. And the board policies you vote on, and that's the BP. And we also share sometimes administrative regulations with you, which is an AR. That is, the board policy is the overarching direction for the district, and the AR is what staff will do to make that happen. So the administrative regulations are actually changed frequently when staff sees the need to make some kind of a change. And so then we also post those with the board policies as an information item for you only. So this evening, when you are voting to approve potentially the board policies, you will not be voting to approve the administrative regulations. I did want to point out on the bottom of that first chart, the wellness board policy. Remember that that's a triennial review. That's one of the longest policies that we have. It's very, very complex, and Ms. Stubbs uses the Wellness and School Climate Committee to dig deep into that policy and ensure that we are in complete alignment. And so with the changes, she will recommend that to go forward. There are a number of new policies that came to us by way of the California School Boards Association as a recommendation. So, for example, the Safe Routes to School program is new. As Trustee Olguin mentioned, the equity policy is new. Civility is a new policy, and so is the school resource officer. Now, the school resource officer program has been in place with our district for the last few years by way of a grant that the St. Helena Police Department has been awarded, and the program has been working incredibly well. I did notify Chief Hartley that this policy was coming forward today, and he was excited and said, with pleasure, let's get together and figure the rest of this out. So the new policy is in place to ensure that the interactions between a school resource officer and our students are appropriate and promote a positive school environment. And in order to allow for a framework there, it is now required that a memorandum of understanding is put in place, an MOU, and there are a number of scopes of work that are required to be defined. And then ultimately, an opportunity for periodic reports to the governing board. And so my recommendation is that the superintendent would continue to meet. I've been meeting with our school resource officer regularly, continue to meet, and then bring a quarterly report to the governing board with regards to the interactions that have occurred. And please know that that's not by way of there's a grave concern on the part of district staff or our police department. Officer Brown, our school resource officer, is a positive influence on our campuses, has provided many opportunities for students to learn about positive choices, provides many parenting opportunities, and she's a little bit of a star when she goes on the primary and the elementary campus. So please know there aren't any concerns. So by way of a general overview, those policies will all come forward to you. Now, last month, staff was directed to bring forward the hate-motivated behavior policy, and by happenstance, I guess, it was also in the queue for an update, and so it is also in this packet tonight. And Erica, if you could open the slide with the three kind of big ideas. So we've had a hate-motivated behavior policy in place previously. The updates that are on the screen, it includes your commitment to providing a respectful, inclusive, safe learning environment, and that protects students from discrimination, harassment, intimidation, bullying, or any other type of behavior that's motivated by hate. And then that second bullet is actually for not only our students and also for our staff. And so when you heard Principal Cox talking about bringing in the Washington consultant to work with staff first, that would fall into this place. And this is that we provide age-appropriate instruction and or professional development that includes social emotional learning, promotes an understanding of respect for human rights, human relations, diversity, and an acceptance in a multicultural society, explains the harm and dangers of explicit and implicit bias, discourages discriminatory attitudes and practices, and provides strategies to manage conflicts constructively. And then the third piece is just an update to the writing around both, again, students and employees who engage in any kind of hate-motivated behavior shall be subject to age-appropriate disciplinary action. So Principal Cox was on the microphone earlier, and she spoke in great detail of many of the things that have already occurred at RLS, and so I won't bring her to the microphone again at this time unless one of you has a specific question. I do recommend approval of all the updated policies, and following that potential approval, I request further direction regarding the direction I received last month with regards to next steps to ensure that all students and employees are in a safe and respectful, inclusive environment that protects them from discrimination, harassment, intimidation, bullying, and any other type of behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Please come forward.
Alicia Summer, 199 Knoll Place. Sorry, I've had a little throat thing today. It's not gone away. Part of the process that we've kind of been undergoing with Principal Cox over at RLS and our subcommittee group to address equity at the school is kind of just helping the community try to figure out how we can find more common language and clear language so that the policies that we're trying to put in place in the school are understood by all. And so my only recommendation for this board policy at 5145.9 is that we take a lead from the San Francisco Unified School District, where they actually did add the definition of what hate-motivated behavior could be. So they say, as an example, provide that a hate-motivated comment or bias incident is biased conduct, speech, or expression that has an impact but does not involve a criminal action described above. I just think that it could be really helpful to add that clarifying language to the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, yes, if there's any additional public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Sommers.
Hi, Adriana Didion Brown, 1174 Meadow Creek Circle here in St. Helena. An incident happened today on school grounds right before school was over, and Miss Cox was already gone for the day. But another child threatened my daughter that she wanted to kill her and she was going to make it look like a suicide, and it was really super disturbing. And Maya's my daughter, went to Mrs. O'Leary, reported the event, and I'm wondering, I just saw up there like search and seizure. Like, is there a way that the child's backpack can be searched tomorrow before my daughter has an interaction with her? Or what's the policy around, like, if there's a threat and it hasn't been dealt with yet, but my daughter has to go back to school and they share a class, how do I do that? How do we go there?
Ms. Cox, would you like to come to the microphone and let her know what your next steps would be at the school? Understanding that you may not be fully aware of the event.
Not at all. Sorry, I had a doctor's appointment, so I wasn't there when it happened, as you know. I really hesitate to answer because I don't have enough information. Students do have a right to privacy. We do have a right to search students if we have the belief that there might be a weapon or something illegal or dangerous, then we absolutely would be able to search her. So I would really appreciate it if you would, when you come, usually drop Maya, right? If you could just come to the office directly, and then we can talk about it and figure out next steps and make sure that Maya feels safe. Do you have any other?
I just didn't know what the board policy was on searching kids.
Well, yeah, it's illegal. So students at school do have a right to privacy, and we can't just randomly search every student without cause. There may be cause. I just need to find out more about it. Okay.
Is there any other public comment from anybody in the audience or through written comment, Ms. Madrigal, or Zoom?
There was no written public comment submitted on this item. I will check our Zoom participants.
Thank you.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom who wishes to publicly comment on this item? If so, please hover towards the bottom of your screen and raise your virtual hand. David, please unmute your mic so that you may provide public comment. Looks like David just lowered his hand. David, would you still like to provide public comment? It does not appear so.
Okay, thank you. Trustees, any questions, clarifications on this agenda item?
Yeah, Andy, thank you for sharing that. Upsets me deeply to hear that. I'd like to find out if now's the right time to hear more about the work that Principal Cox and the parent group are doing toward the tiers of discipline around the hate speech, the behavior.
Principal Cox, would you like to come back to the microphone and share where you are so far and what we will be doing? Share what you've done so far and what we'll be working on tomorrow with the principal team.
Sure. So based on the parent group, that we have an equity subcommittee, principal subcommittee of the parent group where we've been talking about policy, specific policy, which we do have in the district, but it's not aimed. It didn't contain all of the details similar to what Alicia was just suggesting for the board policy. So we've been meeting every couple of weeks, and they had the opportunity also to read the book that we were talking about doing for a school read to provide input. I've updated the policy. It is also been given to the other principals so that we can have continuity throughout the district and that it won't be one site in isolation, but that in an age-appropriate way, it will be similar throughout the site. So it is in draft form. At this point, we are meeting again tomorrow morning to talk more about that. And once it is no longer in draft form, then it will be, sent. Students will be signing it. Did I answer your question thoroughly, Laura?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And what I also am curious about is while I appreciate that we are working as a team in this community to create tiers of discipline that work for our community. Has there been any outreach to other districts to take a look at the work that they do, and if their tiers are successful?
So there hasn't. Have I done research on this? Yes, absolutely. If that's what you're asking, yes, I have. What I have found, and I have looked at a number of school districts, websites and policies that are available, and have actually spent quite a bit of time on it, looking for specifics, and they tend to be pretty overarching. And that is because I think probably my guess is that at a board and district level, there's a recognition that discipline is very individual, and that having everybody has the same consequence no matter what is a recipe for deep inequities in the way that it seems on the surface as though that is fair. However, it's kind of like what we've talked a lot about in this district is the difference between equity and equality, and circumstances are different. I'll just very briefly share a true story from when I was a teacher back in the era of, some of you may recall, I don't know, of the my mind just went completely blank, but zero tolerance. Sorry, there's the words I'm searching for. So in the era of zero tolerance, which is pretty much gone by the wayside because as in the criminal justice system, zero tolerance led to all kinds of issues in our criminal justice system with inequitable imprisonment of people of color. And they also found that zero tolerance policies in schools had the same effect when people are suspended, just you did this, X, you're out, gone. So in my personal experience, there used to be it was written that if a student brought a knife to school, they had to be suspended. And when I was a teacher, there was a student who brought a knife to school. It was a butter knife. It was in that student's backpack to assist them with making lunch, and they were suspended for 3 days because it was a zero tolerance policy. So I think that's why there aren't a lot of I have not been able to find any very clear specific guidelines for that reason, is that we are dealing with human beings who are small children, and in many cases, and so when there's no room for administrators to consider the context, it's not always equitable for every student. So that's my guess why I can't find it. So there isn't really anything available to my knowledge. And the internet's a very large place, so it's possible that there's things out there that I missed.
Right. And, while I think about middle school, because I did teach middle schoolers, we have the new young sixth grader who might be trying some language on for size, and then we have the more mature eighth grader who may exhibit blatant racism. So creating that tiered system, and I know as I would appreciate to see that, how do we discipline based on the crime?
Exactly. And the policy that will be brought to the subcommittee, actually I emailed a draft to them, really addresses that because it gives us room for education, which is our goal. And that is the first step always with students, is to involve parents, because we want to have a school community partnership. We know that we see kids for a few hours a day, but in the end, parents are the ones who are raising their children. And so if we all want to be on the same page, we need to work together. And for the most part in our community, it's really an awareness. Our parents don't want our children to be impolite, racist, rude, disrespectful, any of those things. We have great students and we have great community, and when parents are brought into the process, 99% of the time they are so supportive and really want to ensure that their students are not behaving that way. And we've had very, very good success with students that we've worked with in that way, and it hasn't happened again.
Great. I just want us to make sure we have a useful strict policy, because I feel like if we're doing a disservice to the students who are committing the hate motivated behavior, if we're not being really strict with them and helping them understand at a young age that, I agree with you, zero tolerance might not make sense, but that there are consequences for their actions. And while education and social emotional learning is so valuable and critical, that there are real consequences, and they cannot feel, they're going to hurt and they're not going to feel good, but to help them understand that the behavior that they committed is far worse to the victim than.
Of course. And that is built in.
Great.
And, you know, at a level, it does get to suspension. There is also pretty clear ed code outlining that we are not allowed to just suspend kids for the first thing. So students are not for the first offense unless it's something that rises to a mandatory sort of expulsion thing. But we have to have done preventative actions. That's part of our requirement as a school district, is that we can't jump to wham consequence. We have to work with students as educators and bringing families in, and yes, consequences, but not jumping straight to suspension. Does that those laws changed just pretty recently, last 5-ish years, something like that, because students were being suspended so disproportionately, and it was having enormous impact down the road on students. And they call it the school to prison pipeline. As a former teacher, I'm sure you're familiar with that term. There's an awful lot of research behind it. That's not a just a word. It's true. Yeah. Other questions?
I had a quick question. With that policy, is that going to be just the students signing, or parents are going to be required to sign that as well?
Both.
Both, okay.
Yeah.
Can I add something quick, just a comment?
Yes.
Sure.
Although Ms. Cox and I have talked about this, just for everyone to know, our leadership class, being the small community we are, we've heard about such racist acts done at the RLS, and we've communicated with Ms. Cox about our ASB being another level of support for the RLS students, and we'd love to meet with their leadership class as well, just as another level of support. Obviously we can't provide some kind of strict teacher guidance, but we are there to support the RLS students while they're going through these hard times.
We reached out to Ms. Brazil because several years ago, when we were having students who were having gender fluidity issues, the high school came down to speak with our students and help educate and talk to them on more of a peer-to-peer level. Again, as I was talking about earlier, developmentally, students often hear from their peers better than from adults, and it was super effective. And so I've reached out to Ms. Brazil and also talked about it with Macy about trying to find time. It's very difficult this late in the year. High school students have finals coming up and they have a lot going on, and so coming down is a bit challenging, but I know that they are interested in doing that, as we are interested in having them with us. So thank you, Macy, for that comment.
I just, I'm still, I have concerns that our policy does need to be more clear.
Maria, can I just because I think I know where you're going, and helping to lead this discussion a little bit, because I feel with you as well. I am wondering how the trustees feel if we pull this particular policy, because it sounds like we need a little bit more work on it. We might need to give Dr. Wilson and staff a little more direction. I think the public comment of some clearly defined language is very beneficial for everybody. And I would like to explore that, adding language in it that clearly defines, as has been done in other school districts as well. So I don't want to stop you from commenting, by all means, if you something more you want to say. But I think as trustees, I'd like you to think about, are you in support of pulling this board policy for further work?
That was going to be my, I wish to pull the policy from the list.
I would like to get it as perfect, as close to right as possible.
And I don't know if we want to approve the rest first, or how do we go about it? Can we discuss this one more, or do we want to discuss it at a future date?
If I'm understanding process correctly, we can approve the others. I would pull this. The motion would then be to approve all the board policies with the exception of 5149.9. We would then ask Dr. Wilson and staff then to make this a separate item for next month, or so that we could have a little, or whether we bring it back to the subcommittee of the board policy committee.
Yes, to everything you've said so far.
Okay.
And if there are, so once the other policies have been approved, if you want to open this up for further discussion in order to give the board policy committee additional direction,
Okay.
that could be helpful.
Okay.
And then we could move forward.
Okay, great. So trustees, that's our decision to make. Would you like to have a little bit further discussion on this now, or just pull it and give some direction? I need a little consensus on this before we make a final decision.
I think you have consensus on pulling it.
Yes.
So you could go ahead right now with the motion to approve all other policies.
Okay.
And so that will be complete.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Cox. So
Okay.
if we could complete that order of business, then we could
Thank
open
you for
the
the guidance. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. So, trustees, do I have a motion to approve the board policies with the exception of board policy 5145.9, the hate motivated behavior policy, as presented?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, please call the roll call vote.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. So now, if I'm understanding correctly, Dr. Wilson, right, we can have just a little bit more discussion on what we would like to happen with this particular board policy.
Absolutely. That policy and any other additional direction you may be giving with regards to the work around
Okay, great.
hate motivated speech.
Trustees, I'm going to allow you to chime in here to help with the direction so that we can then give a consensus to Dr. Wilson on what needs to happen next.
So I'm happy to start. So with the conversation that's happening right now with all of this, it seems very clear to me that this needs to be something that is part of our entire district, as far as where it's age appropriate type of education and things. And I'm thinking is that if that is maybe taking some of the ideas that Principal Cox is doing at her school, and can I bring it down lower, to each grade, higher and lower, as far as the grades? And I'm just kind of rambling a little bit because I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. But I believe that would probably be more kind of the admin side, the administrative regulations. So maybe if we had administrative regulations attached to this somehow, maybe that, to the board policy, that might clear up some of the. That's just a thought.
Yeah, so right now we just have the general discipline AR attached to it, correct?
Currently, CSBA does not recommend an administrative regulation with the hate motivated. Erica, could you also open up the website that we have in this item for the, it was a link in the item. Oh, there you go. You went faster than I was watching. I just wanted to make sure and call to attention to the board the piece of the website under the parenting section with all of the anti-bullying forms, policies, processes. This is all lives on our website. Cyberbullying, there's lots of information there also, and I failed to share that with you earlier, but it is there along with the uniform complaint procedure in the event that someone is feeling bullied and wants to file a formal complaint. So that information lives on our website. And as I said, currently CSBA does not recommend an AR. That doesn't mean we can't have an AR. I think Principal Cox, had the notion that there's a hesitancy to say specifically exactly what's going to happen because it's always by child, every child every day, and so. We do want to make sure that everything that we do is age appropriate in instruction and also consequences.
Sure.
I do understand we keep using the word age appropriate, but I just want to remind everyone that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and 30 years from now, the victims of racism are going to remember what happened to them in middle school. They're going to remember this. Those children that are victims are going to be remembering this. and the perpetrators will not remember what they did. And we have to do something as a community and as a school district. We have to do something to stop what is going on right now. And I know that it takes time, and I know that we don't want to do a knee-jerk reaction, and I know we want to go with proven methods. But we have to make clear to our students that this behavior is absolutely unacceptable. And if we can't use the word zero tolerance, then we have to make it clear that there are consequences to any racist behavior. And I don't want to call it bullying. I want to call
Right.
it racism, because that's what we're dealing with.
Right.
We are dealing with racism. And it's not just hate-motivated behavior, it's racism. And if we're going to be talking about this, you know, racist behavior at school, it's going to increase violence, it's going to increase suicides, it's going to increase school violence because students feel unsafe. We have to fix this.
And I agree with you that you know, that bullying, you know, racism can be a subset of bullying, but it's separate. It has to be addressed separately. I completely concur with Trustee Cow on that. So, Maria, I just want to let you know I completely respect and admire your resolution towards this. So, and I do think I see everybody shaking their heads on this dais, just that would in agreement with you. So, I do agree that maybe perhaps Dr. Wilson, with what I'm hearing. So I'm sorry, Julia, did you want to say something first? No. Okay. Is that it sounds like some creation of an AR, and maybe that's going to come out of the work that's being done at RLS. You know, and I know there's hesitancy to put something in stone, but I think that is what the community is looking for as well, is some concrete ramifications of the behavior. And we have to spell those out to a degree. However, it works for both students and the school district. And I know I'm charging, this is a charge that feels probably very overwhelming, but we have to start, I think is the feeling, correct? Yes. Okay.
President Pelosi, I don't feel overwhelmed, and I don't feel like it's a charge, because we have worked every day to ensure that our students feel safe in our schools. And when we find a problem, we work to fix it.
Okay.
And I applaud our principals for the work that they do and the work that our teachers do to ensure children are safe. We are aware, and we are working on it. And I think you heard that from Principal Cox tonight in her explanation. So I don't feel charged. Okay. This is the work that we need to do. Okay. I'm merely seeking direction, and what I've heard so far is that you are looking for 51459 to be reworked to include a deeper definition of what hate-motivated behavior or language is. And in addition to that, you want to hear more about what the discipline policy around racism, acts of racism, are at each of our schools. And then I'm also hearing that those policies perhaps will become an AR that will be attached to the board policy.
That works for me. Trustees?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will caution you that it is the end of April, and we will work diligently to get as much of this work done as we can for an update in May. And if I have the pleasure of calling it an update, not a finished product, it might be, and I would offer an opportunity for more fine tuning at that time.
Okay. Yeah, go right ahead.
I just also wanted to recognize all the parents that are here from the RLS. I know that they're the ones that have not remained quiet, and even though it's uncomfortable to talk about this, you guys have pushed the principal and also the principal for continuing to collaborate with them. And also the parents that I saw on Zoom, they are also part of that committee. So thank you guys for doing that work.
I was absolutely going to say the same thing too. Thank you for your time and your commitment, because this is ultimately about our students. So thank you for working with the school to come to some kind of solution. I really appreciate your time. Oh, hi.
Thank you. If I could make one brief comment.
Public comment was closed. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'll think of my thoughts and I'll share them. In
Okay,
a different
thank you.
venue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Wilson, if you have your direction there, and trustees, everybody's comfortable with where we are right now? Yes. Okay. I think at this point, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll reconvene and power out the last of this agenda. Is everybody comfortable with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. Derek. Okay, we're back. Okay. Thank you for sticking with us. We are going to reconvene and we're going to pick up at item 11A, which is the 2021-22 Local Control Accountability Plan Update, presentation on student feedback. And I'm going to ask Mr. Heller, I believe.
That's correct.
And there we are. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. So some of this information was presented by Trustee Kerr already in the recap of our LCAP meeting, but I will go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the information that we are collecting from our community partners. We're transitioning that name to community partners from stakeholders, so you'll previously, and sometimes I'll probably use that as we transition, but stakeholders is now going to be referred to as community partners. And so as part of our LCAP, at this point of the year, we do collect information from our community partners. And you can see I wrote stakeholder up there, so I'm still working on that. But part of that information is we collect it from our students, from our parents, as part of the parent survey that was mentioned earlier as well. And so this year it was a little different, as was mentioned. Principal Cox and Principal Cento did do this direct student forum instead of in front of our LCAP steering committee, and you could see that we had about 88 students participate. And so these 5 questions were developed by the steering committee, and as you recall, we have a focus this year on wellness in the district, and so these 5 questions guided the conversation and helped develop the report that's attached. And out of that report, I took a look at that and kind of developed 3 themes that were prevalent or, were rose to the top as far as things that we need to consider. So the first one, obviously, is the impact of COVID-19 that it's had on all of us, but especially our students, their concerns about their own mental well-being, feeling disconnected from school, being on distance learning, and then coming back and getting back into the routine of school, feeling like they're behind, that they're disconnected, because it was an interruption in the flow of their education, and so getting back into that routine has been challenging for some. And of course, the impacts of COVID that has had not only on individuals but family structures with members that may have contracted COVID or may have lost employment. All those outside stressors or factors that weigh on our students. So there's quite a bit involved in there, and so you could see that we're continually working through the effects of COVID as we start to move into the endemic part of this pandemic. Secondly, and it was mentioned earlier tonight about relationships. I mean, the relationships that we have in education have a tremendous impact on student achievement, and the positive classroom environment is going to yield a positive results from our students, and we know that teacher-student relationships not only engage students in the class, but also engage them in the content that they're going to learn. As much as it's as much as you like your teacher is as much as you're going to engage in the curriculum. So not that we all want to be liked, I guess, in some, but it needs to be a respectful environment. And so you can see that respect is a two-way street. That students want to feel respected in the class, and in turn, they want to respect the teachers that they work with. And then the last theme in this bullet is about being a part of a community. There was a strand in there that students really, want to be a part of a campus culture and a climate. And some of the work that we're doing, not only academically, but as we talked about in terms of equity and feeling a part of the campus and feeling a part of something larger than themselves, that rang true as well. And then finally, our conversation that we've had ongoing regarding equity and inclusions. Students, some of the themes were just the concerns about consistent disciplinary practices, not necessarily always from the administrative end, but just in the classroom in terms of how they might view certain students are treated inequitably on kind of more routine things like bathroom passes or those types of little smaller issues that a teacher may allow one student to use the restroom but may not allow another. And that might be based on some previous history or some other things that have occurred that students might see, why is that student treated differently than me? And so when those things happen, you could see that a student who feels like there might be some inequity in the classroom might tend to withdraw or disengage. And part of one of the themes that was noted is that when students were prompted, how do we fix this? What does this look like? They're really kind of unable to provide solutions because they recognize that, well, it's challenging. You know, I do know that sometimes somebody does abuse the bathroom pass, so it's hard to, I don't know how to solve that for the teacher in that particular case. So, you know, I think with that being left open-ended, I think that still gives us an angle to take a look at how we, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, but how we really focus in on how do we ensure that students have a voice and make sure that those types of things that they can bring to somebody's attention and say, that seems inequitable, that doesn't seem fair, in a respectful way. So some of the reflections that I have based on the report and its review is, you know, and it's timely, we want to review our practices related to student discipline and our classroom practices as well. Make sure that they're consistent across the board. And along that line, just to make sure that the student voice and their feedback as we develop this shows that their response and their experiences are important for us to talk about how we're going to refine our practices and move forward. You know, we want to continue to provide student supports that we have this year. I don't think any of us feel like the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic are concluded and we can just start school fresh in 22-23 with, you know, business as usual. I think we need to continue with our counseling support and our mental health focus and making sure that students not only have that in place, but also have the academic supports that they might need for next year and in future years. And then we want to share this engagement report with all staff and send it out to everyone so everybody has a chance to review and see the content. And we're going to ask that the principals you know, have a little further discussion about that theme of equity with their staff and at their staff meeting here in May. So it's really good, timely reflections that kind of fit some of the themes that we've already talked about tonight. And I think it'll help us as we think about the changes within the LCAP to come up with some either strengthening practices or to take a look at the things that we're doing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, any written or Zoom public comments?
There is no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Trustees, this is obviously an information item, but any questions or clarifications for Mr. Heller?
When I was looking through this, one of the things that I was thinking, and certainly what, you know, just our last topic as well, is there a need for more counseling type of positions at our school sites, do you think? I mean, and you don't have to answer because that's a pretty high and that's broad, and there's a lot of things that go with that.
There are a lot of things that go with it. We have counseling support. Are you thinking academic counseling or guidance counseling, social emotional? I think there could be a place for that. That could be something that we look at, but it does have other layers to it.
Implications, exactly.
Yeah, and Trustee Kerr, we, in our work with Up Valley Family, we have asked them to increase the number of hours available for the next school year for the mental health counseling.
Okay.
And counselors are in short supply.
Yes.
And so I know that it is challenging to hire, and yet that is the intent.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very
and
much.
I know that. Okay, I'll withdraw because I'm getting off topic. I don't want to get off topic. I'll ask later.
Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation.
I wanted to say that I really appreciated the report that went along with the presentation.
Yes.
I thought that was really helpful to see how the kids answered the questions. And I'm looking at, the part about the pandemic and how it impacted them. I mean, just hearing what they had to say just broke my heart. And, I know that there's been a ton of research on social media and how it negatively affects our youth. And is that or can that be specifically addressed when we have these social emotional conversations about, I see, words that pull that, I see words like isolation and them feeling, like they've come, there was a comment about we've come back to school and we, we're, oh gosh, which one was it? But it was, we're not as close as we were, something along those lines.
Sure.
And I know that social media can be very isolating, and I'm wondering and I know that more children perhaps relied on it when they weren't at school, or got hooked on it more when they weren't at school. And can that be a part of the conversation with kids to?
Absolutely. I think our principals hear that, and social media, while it has its advantages when used properly, can also be a distraction and a deterrent to their ability to connect with other humans. And as we highlighted, relationships are key, and it's hard to have a relationship with other adults or students on campus when your phone is your primary outlet. And I think we all kind of recognize that. And so for 18 months or so for students, their phone was their, friend. And so we have to undo a lot of those learned behaviors. And that's a challenge.
Yeah. And I think that can definitely start with open conversation at school to maybe help kids feel that it's okay to talk about it and it's okay to feel, the way that they're feeling about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, the design of some of the interactions that the teachers are doing in the classroom is to try to get students to interact again and to communicate. So I know we were doing a lot of that work prior to the pandemic. So it's just that getting back to that, getting back to that comfort level of sharing your ideas, the think, pair, share, and talking with a partner, working in small groups.
Right.
That's going to take a little time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Item 11B is the 2021-22 LCAP update on RLS data trends. Principal Cox. It's your night.
I guess so, yeah. To be honest, this one totally slipped my mind. Okay, but I'm going to get right back into it anyway. Let's see. Okay, so I highlighted a few different areas of data from the year. This is the measures of academic process. I cannot speak, I'm sorry. Measures of academic progress, which is the MAP assessment that we give. And you can see the growth in the light blue is 2021 and in the dark blue is 2022. So I am super pleased that we have seen a lot of growth. And yes, there was learning loss. Yes, there will continue to be learning loss. It's not over. But the work that our teachers are doing with students is paying off, and you can see the significant increase that's happened. And by the way, it's about 4-ish points as a whole grade level, just to give you some idea, because it's pretty hard to know the difference between 215 and 220. That doesn't mean anything to you, but it depends on grade level and subject area, but you can rough estimate 4 points as a grade level. If you look at this slide, this is a RIT score, which is the it's the RASH interval scores, but it's what they call it. That's how they measure growth on the MAP assessment. And again, expected growth is 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. And overall, if you look at this information, students at RLS achieved almost 2 years growth in a year's time. And for those of you who were with us last year, we did see that the drop-off was not as significant as we expected it to be. So they didn't lose a whole year and then gain 2 years. They didn't lose a whole year in the first place. And so they're still not right where they should be, but they are doing really well on catching up. And you can see I did cohorts. So rather than comparing this year's 7th grade to last year's 7th grade, I went from 6th grade to 7th grade. You can see that the growth was almost doubled from 7th to 8th grade. Also about 40% higher than expected. And in reading, approximately the same thing. So I was really, really pleased to see this, as were the teachers. Proud of our kids for working so hard and proud of our teachers for the work that they did to get that catch up. The Responsibility Center Discipline Program is RCD, so you can look at discipline issues that we had prior to RCD. And my contacts are not good enough for me to see that number. It's really tiny. I think that says 134. Is that right? Okay, well, better than I thought. So you can see that in 18-19, that was per year in purple, and then per month is the light blue. So that's the difference. And as soon as we started it, it plummeted down to just about 50% of what it was when we implemented that program. And then I skipped 2021 because obviously it would be 0, and that's not fair. So I didn't want to tweak my data and make us look like we're so amazing. It's not really accurate. So I went to 21-22, which is this year. And also on each of these, I prorated it because obviously we're not done with this school year yet. So even though we have, some serious issues happening as we do throughout the district, overall, the smaller things are going really well. I mean, kids are learning, they're doing the right things in class. Teachers are working really hard on this program. It's not easy for teachers, it's hard for teachers, but they're putting the time and effort in. And then this is the data from the California Healthy Kids Survey. And you can see this, I believe Mary Ellen has shared some of this data with you before. There's a lot of information in it, so I just focused on school engagement and supports because of the social emotional piece that we've been talking about, so the school connectedness. And you can see that our 7th graders this year, 74% of them are feeling connected, which is a really high level given what they've gone through. 90% of kids agree that the adults have high expectations of them. And then, as we always see, meaningful participation is an area of struggle throughout the district, and that is because we have standards to teach, and kids don't always feel like they get a say in what they're learning, and sometimes, frankly, they don't. We could do a better job, though, and that's something we're certainly working on. Monthly absences, our attendance is amazing, and I was just reading an article that said many schools have 40% absences. Did you see that too? We are not seeing that. As a board, you should be aware of that. Our attendance is really good. We do have kids who miss because of quarantining, but overall we have great attendance, and there is no disparity among our racial groups. It's always good. School safety, again, schools perceived as safe or very safe, and you can see that the vast, vast majority of students find school safe or very safe. Harassment or bullying, is approximately the same across the schools. We would love that to be 0. And then mean rumors, the hallmark of middle school students, so there are some mean rumors being spread. And next step is there is an in-person refresher staff training for the first VA day in October. For staff. Grade level teams will continue to administer and evaluate the MAP data as we always do to support students and address those learning gaps in more detail. School culture and climate continues to be a focus, including the resumption of Safe School Ambassador training, which we've already done, Where Everybody Belongs web training, and also school-wide activities, many of which I've mentioned as I've been up here multiple times this evening. Data from a variety of sources will be used to help develop the site plan in alignment with the district LCAP. Any questions?
Is there anybody present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, any Zoom or written public comment? No.
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions or clarification needed from Ms. Cox? No? Okay. No, thank you very
Okay,
much
thanks.
for
Thank you.
It was great. Yeah. You might want to say that again because
I'm sorry. And congratulations to your entire team for the progress on the scores here. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, item 12A, consideration of adoption of resolution 21-36 and 21-37, consent to teach 2021-22. Mr. Heller.
Thank you. Typically, these consents to teach would be brought to you in the fall in August and September, but a recent unexpected employee leave has made it necessary for us to backfill existing staff on their preparation period and teach their classes. The lack of substitutes, again, is kind of rearing its head, and it's very difficult to find somebody, especially in this particular subject area. So these teachers on consent tonight have the subject matter content to enable them, if asked, to teach the rest of this school year, if need be. So they would be eligible to properly conclude the rest of the school year with your approval. So I'd ask that you'd approve these two consents to teach.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item, either written, Zoom, or anyone present?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I'd just like to recognize not only the two teachers that are listed on the consent to teach, but all the teachers that are really coming together for one of their colleagues at this time and for the students. I really think that we owe them all a huge thank you, and they know that their students are very appreciative, I'm sure.
Yes.
Absolutely, I agree. And also Ben for helping, probably doing it, finding ways to make it work during those periods and asking teachers to give up their current class and pick up another class. It was a little more challenging than it sounds. So thanks, Ben.
Go Saints. Good job. Okay, is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 21-36 and 21-37 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 12B, consideration of approval for initial sunshine proposal from CSEA Chapter 287 to St. Helena Unified for collective bargaining negotiations. Mr. Heller, please.
Yes, CSEA is sunshining all articles of this collective bargaining agreement to begin negotiations upon approval. You will recall the district has already sunshined all articles in January, so upon approval here, we can begin scheduling negotiation sessions with CSEA Chapter number 287. So I ask that you would approve.
Thank you. Is there any public comment from those present, written, or Zoom?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the initial sunshine proposal from CSEA Chapter 287 to St. Helena Unified for collective bargaining negotiations as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 12D is going to be consideration of approval for Resolution 21-35, final action on decision not to reemploy classified employees for the 22-23 school year. Mr. Heller, please.
Yes, the governing board's asked to approve this resolution as a final layoff notice for the educational technology specialist position. The board approved the initial layoff in March, and the action tonight would complete the process. The employee in the bargaining unit are aware of the action, and we are in the process of working and revising the technology job descriptions to continue to support the work in this capacity. So I would ask that you approve this resolution for the final layoff notice.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item?
Is there any public comment from our Zoom participants? There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 21-35 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is most are in favor of the motion? Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 12E is review and consideration of approval of the 22-23 classified management salary schedule. New position added. Mr. Heller, please.
Well, this one's mine.
Oh, sorry. Oh, got it.
Thank you. For this item, the board is asked to review and approve the classified management salary schedule for 2022-23, which has been revised to include the new Director of Technology and Information Systems position. The board approved the job description for this position during the March 10th, 2022 board meeting. And it will be paid at the same per diem rate as our other director positions and includes a work calendar of 226 days a year. And the costs for this position were included in the multi-year projection with the first and second interim reports, and they will also be included in the original budget for 2022-23. That will come to the board for public hearing next month.
Is there anyone present or written or Zoom public comment on this agenda item?
There's no public comment.
You're going to say, okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2022-23 classified management salary schedule as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022-23 classified management salary schedule.
Is there a second?
I will second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries.
Sorry, excuse me.
You're excited. Item 13A, the St. Helena Unified Business Operations Quarterly Update. And I know that this is just an information item, and this is a written report. Trustees, any public comment on this agenda item, either by those present, written, or Zoom?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can have a question about it because it's not on the report, but it's part of business operations. If there's any update on the RLS field?
No.
No update or no?
It is not embedded in the report, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I didn't see it, so we can't.
You can ask for an update at a later time.
Great, thank you.
Item 13B, the third board review of the 2022-23 budget assumptions, also a written report. Is there any public comment on this agenda item, written or Zoom public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Thank you, as always, for making that a very nice report to review. Okay, 13C, approval of the 2021 Measure B and C bond audit reports. Ms. Zandy Stubbs.
Thank you. These would be the Measure B and C bond audit reports for the fiscal year ending in 2021. And we had no findings in these reports, I'm pleased to say. The Business Operations Committee did review them during their April 13th, 2022 meeting in lieu of the Citizens Oversight Committee because we have no active members on that committee currently. At this moment in time, we have a balance remaining of approximately $275,000, which we anticipate spending next year, and the annual report for Measure B and Measure C will come to the board in May.
Thank you. Is there any public, written, or Zoom comment on this agenda item?
There's no public comment.
Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I just have a quick logistical one. So you said that we had about 250,000 left. Once that is spent, then does this just close out, or how does it work with the bonds?
Once the dollars are all spent, then we would have an audit for that final year, and then it would be all closed out and done with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
And is that money all within the tech? Everything is in the tech fund.
Yes, correct.
Congratulations on a no-finding audit report.
Thank you. I always read those ones starting with the last page.
Yeah, exactly. Is there a motion to approve the 2021 Measure B and C bond audit reports as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. We're now on to 13D, public hearing and approval of the developer fee justification study and resolution 21-32 in the matter of increasing school facility fees as authorized by Government Code Section 65995B3. Okay.
Thank you once
Yes.
again. The State Allocation Board raised the rate that we can charge for developer fees from $4.08 to $4.79 per square foot for residential construction, and from 66 cents to 78 cents per square foot for commercial construction. And in order for us to increase our fees, the district must commission a developer fee justification study, which was completed by King Consulting, and then the board must approve a resolution with a public hearing. And so Resolution 2132 is presented for public hearing and board consideration tonight.
Great, thank you. The public hearing for the developer fee justification study and resolution 21-32 in the matter of increasing school facilities fees is now open at 8:58 p.m. We'll keep the hearing open for at least one moment. During this public hearing, comments should be limited to the developer fee justification study. It is our goal to hear from all of those who wish to be heard. We now invite members of the audience to address the Board of Trustees on the developer fee justification study. Be it noted that we have one audience member in our in the room with us. And Zoom, Miss Madrigal, is there any? You'll obviously let us know if there's anybody who wishes to speak.
We do have Zoom participants. However, no one has raised their virtual hand.
Okay, we'll give it, I'm watching the clock, we'll give it to 9 o'clock. And the governing board has heard no comments this evening or concerns, and we thank you very much for chiming in or I should say watching all the same. The public hearing is now closed at 9 o'clock p.m. Do the trustees have any questions about the matter of increasing school facility fees?
I don't have any questions now.
Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 21-32 in the matter of increasing school facilities fees as presented?
Motion to approve the adoption of resolutions 21 through 32.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 13E is review and consider approval of contracts over 25,000. Miss Andy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. And we have 4 contracts over 25,000 for the board to consider this evening. The first is a renewal of an agreement with Sonic for internet services, and we pulled this from the March agenda to research more detail on the costs. And so the chart within the agenda language shows the monthly adjusted cost of internet services after all discounts are applied, including the E-rate discount, a California Telnet discount, but then also building back in the cost of the dark fiber maintenance charges, which I believe is what was missing from the estimates for the renewal period when we were looking at this last month. And then the next contract, and so to conclude that, so with all of those factors included, then the rate will be about the same per month after all those discounts. So then the next contract is with Adroit, Advanced Technologies for Special Ed Transportation, for up to 2 special ed students for next year. And so this would be a renewal of the contract that we have currently. However, for this year, we are providing service for 1 student, and we are increasing the budget in the event that we may need to provide services for 2 students next year. The next contract would be with Carducci Associates, and this is for the architectural services related to the RLS Field and Track project. And so this would be the first step in doing the work for that project. And then finally, we have a renewal for a contract with Michael's Transportation for temporary drivers for next year. And we currently have 1 vacancy still, which we are working to fill. And if we are not able to fill that vacancy by next school year, then we'll have this contract with Michael's Transportation to backfill for that position. And with that, I would ask the board to approve the contracts over 25,000.
Thank you. Is there any public comment written, Zoom, or by those present?
There is no public comment.
Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I just wanted to say that I missed this information about the field, so this is great, and a great update. Thank you.
I do have a question, and I know it's but I hate to do this to you. Go for it. The transportation for special ed students. Now, this is for students that live within our district boundaries, or is it for a special ed student that is part of our partnership? I'm just curious as to bus transportation for students that are not living within our district, that are part of the special arrangements that we have with neighboring districts. Do we cover that, or do they cover it?
To those placements.
And Ms. Stubbs, just to clarify, in the MOU for students with special needs that may be coming to us from outside of the district, additional costs are covered by that district.
Yes, thank you, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And this amount is just in case there possibly could be a second one that we're anticipating. Okay.
Yes, we want to ensure that we have enough built into the budget for next year to cover that.
Okay.
Just in case.
Great, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the contracts over 25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 14A is future agenda items. You'll see we've got the upcoming dates are outlined for us as well, so make sure your calendars are noted for that, and then our regular board meeting topics. don't be overwhelmed. It's just, it's a space and a half of the, the alignment is, just makes it look longer than it is. So, trustees, any questions or subjects for future agenda items?
Just be the policy that we outlined today, but that might be at a.
It might be an
at
update, as
June
Dr.
or
Wilson
whether- yeah,
indicated. So,
exactly.
I think at that point we should plan for an update more so than. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. So item 15A is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson will request a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting has adjourned at 9:06 p.m. Thank you, everybody.